Conservative theory, with its emphasis on tradition, limited government, free markets, and individual responsibility, has been influential in shaping political and economic policies. However, like any ideological framework, it is not without its criticisms and potential drawbacks. 1. Resistance to change and social progress, A. Status quo bias, resistance to reforms. Conservative theory often emphasizes maintaining the status quo and preserving traditional institutions. This can lead to resistance against necessary social reforms and slow progress on issues such as civil rights, gender equality, and environmental protection. Inflexibility. The reluctance to adapt to changing social norms and values can make conservative policies seem out of touch with contemporary society. B. Exclusionary practices. Marginalization of minorities. A focus on traditional values and institutions can perpetuate exclusionary practices and discrimination against marginalized groups, including racial and ethnic minorities, LGBTQ+ individuals, and women. 2. Economic inequality, A. Trickle-down economics. Wealth concentration. Conservative economic policies often prioritize tax cuts for the wealthy and deregulation of businesses, based on the belief that benefits will trickle down to the broader population. Critics argue that this approach can exacerbate wealth and income inequality, concentrating wealth in the hands of a few. Insufficient redistribution. Conservative theory generally opposes extensive redistribution of wealth through progressive taxation and social welfare programs, potentially leaving lower-income individuals and families without adequate support. B. Limited safety nets. Cuts to social programs. Emphasizing limited government intervention can lead to cuts in social safety nets, such as welfare, unemployment benefits, and food assistance programs, leaving vulnerable populations without necessary support. Healthcare access. Resistance to government involvement in healthcare can result in inadequate access to medical services, particularly for low-income and uninsured individuals. 3. Environmental concerns. A lack of environmental regulation. Environmental deregulation. Conservative policies often favour deregulation to promote economic growth, which can lead to environmental degradation, pollution, and loss of biodiversity. Climate change. Skepticism. Some conservative theorists and politicians express skepticism about climate change and oppose robust measures to address it, potentially hampering efforts to combat global warming and protect the environment. B. Short-term economic focus. Immediate gains over sustainability. Prioritizing short-term economic gains over long-term sustainability can undermine environmental protection efforts and compromise the well-being of future generations. 4. Social policy issues, A. Criminal justice and law enforcement. Harsh penalties. Conservative approaches to law and order often emphasize tough-on-crime policies, including mandatory minimum sentences and increased incarceration rates, which critics argue can lead to over-criminalization and disproportionate impacts on marginalized communities. Lack of rehabilitation. Focus. Emphasis on punitive measures can overshadow efforts to rehabilitate offenders and reduce recidivism. B. Education policies. Inequality in education. Policies favouring school choice, vouchers, and charter schools can exacerbate educational disparities by diverting funds from public schools and creating unequal access to quality education. 5. Global isolationism and nationalism. A. International relations. Isolationist tendencies. Conservative nationalism can lead to isolationist policies that reduce international cooperation, weaken global alliances, and undermine international institutions. Trade protectionism. Opposition to free trade agreements and protectionist measures can harm international trade relations and economic growth. B. Immigration policies. Restrictive immigration policies. Conservative approaches to immigration often focus on strict enforcement and limited entry, which can contribute to labour shortages, reduce cultural diversity, and create humanitarian concerns. 6. Democratic processes and governance. A. Partisanship and polarisation. Political division. Conservative rhetoric and policies can contribute to political polarisation and partisanship, making it challenging to achieve bipartisan cooperation and effective governance. B. Voter suppression concerns. Restrictive voting laws. Conservative support for restrictive voting laws, such as voter ID requirements and reduced access to early voting, can lead to voter suppression and disenfranchisement of certain populations, undermining democratic principles.